Today we're returning to the scripture that was at the heart of my sermon on Sunday. That was Matthew 12:46 to 50. And our verse for the day is verse 50. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. Not to totally try to recapitulate my message from Sunday, but again, in Matthew, there is a great emphasis on doing the will of God. And there's an emphasis on the character and the ethics of Jesus and how those of us who are his followers are called to follow that character and to live out those ethics. Much more so than the Gospel of John, for example, Matthew really emphasizes over and over and over, you need to do what you say you believe. And Jesus, in Matthew's Gospel, being presented as the successor to Moses, if you will, as a teacher, and the royal Messiah from the line of David, we hear him earlier in Matthew's Gospel in the Sermon on the Mount with this repeated phrase, "You have heard that it was said to those of old, but I say to you," or "You've heard that it was said, but I say to you." Jesus reinterpreting the law of Moses and moving from outward or external behaviors deeper and deeper into a person's heart and soul and spirit and what comes from the inside. And so in Matthew, you have this dynamic of we need to know Jesus because in knowing Jesus, we want to become like him. In becoming like him, we're going to act in ways that Jesus did. And Jesus was all about doing the will of him who sent him. And as I mentioned in my sermon on Sunday, there's also an inclusive nature to the family of God as Jesus articulates it. There were people among Jesus' early followers whose family members, kicked them out because they were associated with Jesus. There's a reason why in several of the Gospels we hear Jesus teaching about how faith in him is going to divide a parent against a child against a parent, and yet it is in the church that we find our true, perhaps our truest family that transcends boundaries of nation and language and ethnicity, and that's part of how the church is, not to get into next week in the Gospel of Luke, a sign of the kingdom, because that church being filled with people from all different nations, all different countries, it's a foretaste of what Revelation says it will be like in heaven when we have people from every language and tribe and ethnic group and nation. So as you go about your day to day, keep your eyes and your ears open for Jesus. And as you look around, understand there may be people who look very different than you, and they're part of the same family of God.